What's going on, troops? Welcome to the channel. My name is Steve. I am a 25-year British Army veteran, and I was a Challenger 2 tank commander. Today, we're going to be looking at a video by the military update, and it's all to do with Ukrainian soldiers using the Challenger 2 main battle tank in Ukraine. I'm going to give you my reaction as an actual Challenger 2 tank commander to what we're seeing on the screen in a second. I'll give you my honest opinion if the channel that's showing this is correct. And let's react to what Ukrainians think of the tank anyway. So let's get into it.
Hello everyone.
Yeah,
Welcome back to the
there we go.
military update. Today we're taking an in-depth look at one of the most unique and
That's an
formidable
M1 Abrams.
tanks currently serving in
There you
Ukraine,
go.
the British Challenger 2. This heavily armored behemoth, once a staple of the UK's armored forces, is now in the hands of Ukrainian paratroopers, where it's being tested on the modern battlefield. To guide us through its capabilities, challenges, and real-world performance, we'll be hearing firsthand from Vitaly, a Ukrainian soldier trained in the United Kingdom and now serving as a Challenger 2 crew member. I've known this vehicle for almost 2 years. I trained in Britain and took a full course to become a Challenger 2 commander. And yes, while we were there, we had to pick up some English. But funnily enough, the British started learning Ukrainian too. Honestly, by the end of it, I think they knew more of our language than we knew of theirs.
Now, I'm led to believe, because I've still got mates who are still in down at Bovington, where they're actually doing this, which is the Bovington, which is the home of the Royal Army Corps, the British Royal Army Corps. Now, I'm led to believe that these guys are coming over with past experience on Russian variants of tanks, and it's 6 weeks. That's all they get is 6 weeks turnaround, and that includes gunnery, that includes driving and maintenance, and that includes the tactical side, a little portion of it as well. Now, they'll have their own tactics clearly, but I'm led to believe again from friends of mine that they are being taught a slight variant of NATO tactics. Now, 6 weeks, is that long enough? No. Just to give you an idea, I spent close to 5 months on my commander's course. All right, and prior to that, there was other courses, gunnery, driving and maintenance, all that sort of stuff. So these guys are getting an extremely condensed version. Of a commander's course, of a driver's course, of a loader's course, and a gunner's course. All right, they're all getting it within 6 weeks, which is crazy. Do I agree with the Challenger 2s being given to the Ukrainians? That's a different story, which I'll cover in another video. But yeah, I mean, these guys are, being dragged over from Ukraine, maybe out of a T-62, maybe out of a T-72, Russian variants, and then plumbed straight into learning on a Challenger 2, which is not there's a lot to it. It's a hell of a lot. You've got drivers courses, you've got gunners courses, you've got operators courses or loaders courses, and obviously the main one would be the tank commanders course as well, which is extremely in-depth. Well, at least it was for me anyway.
The Challenger 2 is a heavy tank, weighing approximately 64 tons in its standard configuration, and up to 78 tons when fitted with additional armor. Despite that weight, it can reach speeds of 45 to 50 kilometers per hour on the battlefield, providing a balance between protection and mobility.
Yeah, he's bang on. 64.5 tons. Yeah, and he's got the added weight when he's talking about the additional armor. All right, we have Dorchester level 2 armor, which goes on the side of the turret, and it also goes on the side of the vehicle itself. The hull that is Dorchester level 2E, a DL2E as we call it. That is an enhancement on top of the armor that's already on the tank itself, which is the Chobham armor. So you guys have probably heard about that, no doubt. Now, the most important factors of tank warfare is maneuverability, survivability, and firepower. All right, and he's talking about those right now. So let's see what else he has to say.
A colleague of mine drove over a mine. The blast hit the side of the tank. It held up perfectly. The crew was fine. That's thanks to its additional side protection, especially the ERA blocks.
They aren't given to them by the Brits, all right? They put their own variants of that armor on the side. As you can see there on the tank, on the turret, as it's traversing to the left there, you can see these little dots on the side of the tank, all right? That's where the extra BL2E sits on the side of the turret. And we do have armor packs on the front there, on the front glacier. As you can see, it's not there right now, but we do. Obviously, like I said, down the side. So that's what he's talking about when he's talking about the add-on armor. The Ukrainians have their own version of that.
In modern warfare, that kind of resilience is essential. The Challenger 2 has a 4-man crew, a driver, a commander, a gunner, and a loader. Unlike more modern tanks that use autoloaders, the Challenger 2 retains a human loader. This setup has distinct advantages in terms of flexibility and reliability during intense combat situations. The driver sits up front, under the gun. On the left is the loader's position. On the right side is the gunner, and above him the commander. It's kind of like a double-decker bus, British design, of course. The commander
Double decker bus, British design, of course. What he's talking about there is obviously where the gunner and the commander sit. And the, are kind of basically the gunner is in between the legs of the commander, if you want, and obviously the driver sits right the way down into the belly of the hull, basically the front of the vehicle.
sits at the top with full 360-degree visibility. If something's wrong, the commander can signal the loader with a light tap, right or left shoulder. Quiet, subtle, effective. Unlike the smoothbore guns found in most modern tanks like the Leopard 2 or M1 Abrams, the Challenger 2 uses a 120mm rifled L-30A1 gun. This choice allows it to fire specially designed high-explosive squash head HESH rounds, which are particularly effective against fortified positions.
What he's talking about there is the head rounds, all right, high explosive squash head, and again the rifled battle, the 120 rifle battle on the Challenger 2 is extremely accurate, and gives us a hell of a range as well. I won't go into detail on that because you can just look that up yourself. It's pretty self-explanatory. But the HESH rounds, as he says there, it's used against fortifications. Well, it's also used against soft skin vehicles, BMPs, smaller armored vehicles like that, and troops as well. It does a hell of a job against troops. And you would have seen the Leopard 2s in Afghanistan using HESH against fortified positions like you're talking about there, the compound walls, etc., to blow straight through them. So yeah, that's what we're talking about with HESH. Okay, HESH has got a range. If we're talking long range HESH, about 4.5 to 5.5 kilometers for area targets. And yeah, so that's what he's talking about when he's talking about HESH.
It's true, the rifled gun gives us better long-range accuracy. We also have a night vision system and a thermal sight, which boosts our engagement capabilities significantly. There was even a fire inside one of the tanks once, but because the ammunition is stored in separate containers, the crew survived unharmed.
If you're wondering what that is there, that's the loader's sight. Okay, it's a ×1 sight. Basically, you can move it very slightly around, so he's got like 1 times normal vision, basically out of the vision block, loader's vision block there.
There was even a fire
And
inside one of the...
if you're wondering what that is right there, all right, that grey thing that he's got his hand on, that's the BV, the boiling vessel. That's what we use to cook all of our food. That's what we use to make brews, cups of tea, coffee, etc. The hot water, that basically boils hot water. It does have a little tray inside as well that you can put your food in, boil in bags, and whatnot. And that's the most important thing on the wagon is the BV, absolutely. And just to the left of that, you'll see the vent tube mags. We'll talk about that hopefully in more detail in a bit, but they're the vent tube magazines. Okay, you can fit 10 rounds in them, and it's what ignites the actual charge.
The tanks once, but because the ammunition is stored in separate containers, the crew survived unharmed. Everything is compartmentalized for safety.
Just quickly going back there. Now, as you're looking at that, all right, you can see the bazooka plate at the back has obviously been either ripped off or taken off by the boys. But that thing that's dangling from the underneath of the actual barrel itself, all right, this thing here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but that is for the TES system. All right, the training system, basically like laser tag, if you will, on steroids. Okay, that is part of the sensor system. And you'll see the other ones to the left and right of the TISH, all right, the thermal imaging sensor head. Just above the gun itself, you'll see like a mirrored thing there. That's what that is. All right, that's the TISH. That's the thermal sight, and to either side of that as well. That's the TES kit as well. And down the barrel, you'll see there is something in the barrel. Again, that's part of the TES kit.
In terms of secondary armament, the Challenger 2 features a 7.62mm coaxial machine gun and a manually operated 7.62mm FNMAG on top.
So what he's talking about is the secondary armaments. All right, we've got the 7.62 chain gun inside, okay, which is coaxially mounted to the gun, and then obviously the loader has this, which is a GPMG. Okay, we call it a GMP, and it's 7.62. One of my favorite weapons to fire, actually. It does have the actual loader's cupola itself there. Okay, it does go 360. Okay, with the patch being completely up like that to give him some sort of protection from the back, and the actual weapon system itself on the mount goes 360 as well. So this gives us a good wide variety of ranges, etc., movability. Now, this is mainly used for anti-air, but it can be used against troops if the loader has got big balls. Let's say. So in 2003, when we were in Iraq, a friend of mine was out the hatch firing this against the Iraqi troops because they were engaged in his vehicle, and he was out the top firing a Jimpy at the Iraqi insurgents, sorry, at the Iraqi soldiers.
The external gun must be operated from outside the turret, exposing the crew, but it remains a valuable asset for anti-personnel defense. We also have what's probably the most practical feature in any tank, the electric kettle and multi-cooker.
Yeah, there it is. That's the BV. All right, that's what he's talking about now. That's not inside the tank. That might be Challenger 1, I believe. Either that or in the Warrior, potentially. I can't see the side of that. But yeah, that's the BV right there. The most important thing on the wagon, basically.
Seriously, our loader can heat food or
Yeah, that's a Challenger 1 or a Chieftain. I think it's a Challenger 1, actually.
make coffee while on the move. There's even a toilet right under the loader's seat.
Going back to the myth, one of the myths with the Challenger 2, there's a toilet on board, right? You see it, there's a toilet and a kettle. Well, yes, there is a kettle on board the BV, as you've just seen. The toilet, all right, when he takes the loader's cushion off there, you'll see, if I can pause it correctly,
It's all
there, right? It's the toilet, okay? I've never known anybody in 25 years to use that, ever, all right? It is there that you can put a bag underneath it in case you need a shit when you're, in an NBC environment, or you come into contact or whatever, you're busting for a shit. Yes, it is there to be utilized if needs be, but in 25 years, I've never seen anybody utilize that. You'd be told, get out, basically. So yeah, there is a toilet and a kettle.
sealed and bag-based with a small window you open and, well, you toss it out.
That's him making a brew with the BV. Good man.
The layout of the tank is designed with both functionality and human endurance in mind. Inside, there's enough space for the loader to stand and move, even during reloads. Ammunition is stored in armored containers located on the right and under.
That's that's a view from the driver's cab, actually, of the Challenger 2. Okay, that's the right-hand side of the driver. That thing above the actual stick, the pillar there, that's what he uses to close the hatch.
Armored containers located on the right and under the main gun, with capacities of 4, 6, or 8 rounds per box.
Back it up. So what you can see there, if you look at his hand, to the right of his hand, you'll see like a black thing with like a silver thing in the middle. That's the gear stick, all right? That's the gears for the tank, okay? We do have a manual option. We can go through that if you want, or you can just stick it into drive if you like, if you want to call it that, and away we go.
Per box. The full combat loadout? 52 rounds. Firing rate depends on the loader's skill. The British record is 10 rounds per minute. Each round has a propellant bag and a separate pyrotechnic cartridge. There's no spent casing. The cartridge ignites the propellant.
So what he's talking about there is, all right, it's a 3-piece round. It's the actual round itself with your fire fin, APF SDS, armored piercing, fin stabilized and discarded sabot against other main battle tanks, or you fire in HESH rounds, okay, high explosive squash head. And he said that there was no empty casing at the end of it. Well, it's a 3-piece. So the round, the bag charge, and then the vent tube magazine, that actually does stay. Okay, that actually gets ejected back out into a thing called we call a spunk catcher. All right, it gets fired back into the turret, hits this vessel, a collection vessel, if you want to call it that, and it drops into that. And obviously, all of the actual spent round is the vent tube magazine, the vent tube, which is used again to ignite. It's basically like a little 7.62 bullet, if you want to call that, round, with no actual bullet on the end of it. Okay, it just has the propellant inside of it to make the bag charge go off, and in turn the guns are fired and send the propellant, send the round downrange.
And then ejects itself. It's similar to how a 155mm artillery piece works, just on a smaller scale. A notable limitation
on this one here, all right, this is Ukrainian version, and they've got the anti-RPG stuff on the side there. Okay, the carriers on the side. We also had that on top of the DL2E, the add-on armor in Iraq, and the actual tank itself was an absolute machine. It was a beast. But when you wanted to do maintenance, it was a pain in the ass because you had to take all of that off, especially if you wanted to do any track maintenance. Anyway, let's get back into it.
Notable limitation is that Challenger 2 ammunition isn't interchangeable with rounds used in tanks like the Leopard or Abrams, which use NATO standard smoothbore munitions.
Yep, He's bang on. It isn't. But with the Challenger 3, which is going to the smoothbore 120, it will be. The Challenger 3, if you haven't seen that, look it up. It's an absolute monster of a wagon. It's going to be the most advanced tank in the world.
One of the reasons Britain decided to shift to a new smoothbore gun in future tank models. Yes, the Challenger 2 fires only its own rounds. Challenger 3 will move to smoothbore so they can share ammo with other NATO tanks. But for now, we use what we have.
And on the back of the vehicle, if you don't know what that is there, to his right-hand shoulder or left-hand side as you're looking at it, all right, that inside that little box there below the first aid kit, there's a first aid kit in there, is the tank telephone. All right, in there is the tank telephone for the infantry to, jump to the back of the wagon, pull that down, pull out a little phone and start talking. That will go through to the crew inside the vehicle. Okay, they can then bring fire onto a target, using that telephone. For instance, that happened to me in the past with an infantry guy's like, mate, I need you to put a round into that over there. Yeah, no worries. But you've got to be careful because sometimes they just appear at the back of the wagon and you don't even know they're there. So if I'm firing 3 rounds, I'll fire 3 rounds and move, maybe, depending on the tactical situation. If there's an infantry behind me, he's going to get run over. So the guys have to be extremely clever when they're picking that tank telephone up. They could say, "Hello, I'm here. I'm at the back of the tank. Don't move," because there has been a few occasions in the past where it's been very, very close.
And it works. Driver comfort is another strength of this platform. The driver operates the vehicle in a near-lying position, giving them greater protection and reduced fatigue during long operations.
Yeah, he's right. The driver does go kind of vertical. It's not like 100% vertical. It's kind of like that. If and he can operate that closed down line in a position with the looking through the vision block, or he can actually sit up with his head out the hatch, as you've seen before in the video. All right, 9 times out of 10, if we're in a tactical situation, we will not have the driver out of the hatch. Obviously, certainly on ranges that won't happen because with the overpressure of the gun going off right above his head, that's not a clever idea. So he's always closed down when we're on ranges or in tactical situations.
The tank uses a semi-automatic gearbox with 6 forward gears and 2 in reverse. Driving controls are closer to those of an aircraft cockpit than a car. Right now, I'm sitting in the driving position. In combat mode, it's almost like lying down, but it's comfortable. If the driver can't see clearly, we also have modern video monitoring systems installed. We can add more cameras for safer driving, especially at night or in rough terrain. The Challenger 2 also features internal systems for track tensioning and an onboard climate control system. With
Track tension, all right, we're on the Challenger 1, and certainly still on the Prav, you had to do it by hand, all right, by ratcheting it tight, whereas on the Challenger 2, it does have the HCT, okay, the hydraulic track tensioner, where the driver can actually just, right stick slightly, mess around with the track tensioner. So it saves anybody, it saves the crew getting out of the vehicle should the track become loose at any point. There is the ability to get in for the driver to actually hydraulically tension the track, which is great. So hopefully they continue that with the Challenger 3. It is the same hull, so I imagine they do.
prioritize crew endurance, especially during extended missions. Yes, we've got heating and AC. You stay warm in winter, cool in summer. It's a machine built for people, not just numbers. Quality over quantity. In service with Ukrainian forces, the Challenger 2 is more than a symbol of British support. It's a resilient platform capable of taking hits and returning fire with deadly precision. While it may not have the logistical simplicity of other NATO tanks, its durability, crew-focused design, and firepower make it a powerful addition to Ukraine's armored forces.
You touched on the logistic train there slightly. All right, that's one of the reasons that the Challenger 2 was never sent to Afghanistan, because the logistical train with the Challenger 2 is massive. All right, it's vast. It really is. We're not, just talking about ammunition. We're talking about fuel. We're talking about spare parts, etc., etc., etc. All right, it is a diesel engine, and it comes with and it eats through a lot of diesel. The logistical train with the Challenger 2, compared to other NATO tank, Leopard 2, whatnot. It is significantly larger.
And for the crews who operate it, represents not just advanced technology, but a second chance to fight and survive. I wasn't born to be a shock trooper, but as a driver, as a tank crew member, I've found my place. No regrets. This has been your...
No regrets. Yeah. I believe I gave 14 of these to the Ukrainians. It's either 12 or 14 or so, full squadrons worth of Challenger 2 and support equipment, so like Kravs, which is the recovery variant of a Challenger 1. Great bit of kit, massive bit of kit. If you've not seen that, then go check out on Google. But yeah, we gave full squadrons worth of vehicles to the Ukrainians. And again, like I touched on earlier, my views on that I'll leave to another video. But yeah, in short, I don't think that we should have ever given 14 of our Challenger 2s to the Ukrainians for the Russians to potentially get their hands on, especially when we're still using it in the British Army.
Inside look at the British Challenger 2 tank, now roaring across Ukrainian terrain.
Subscribe to the military archive as well if you want to see more of these reaction videos. So there it is. That was the Challenger 2 in Ukraine. There is a few more videos online that I'm going to try and get my hands on to do reaction videos or in the next few months. But yeah, that's the Challenger 2 in Ukraine. It's apparently doing really well. I believe they've lost 2 or 3 of the Challies over there. I know one. I've seen pictures of one which was absolutely devastated, like just in half, like it'd been opened up from inside. And I don't know what that was caused by. Probably an FPV. And I'm glad I'm retired. If I'm honest, I'm glad I'm a retired tank commander now, because FPV drones are just hammering tanks. It's putting a whole new game, a whole new outlook on Challenger 2s, M1s, Leopards, all of that. I wouldn't want to be a tank commander now, that's for sure, especially going into somewhere like Ukraine. That's crazy. I'm sure that'll eventually be negated through technology and whatnot, just like we did with the IEDs in Iraq and stuff in Afghanistan. We found ways around that. I'm, hoping that we can still continue on that path with trying to find ways around these FPV drones, because they're not very good for being a tank soldier. That's for sure. They are wiping out wagons left, right, and centre. This is the first video I've done like this, all right? So excuse me if it was a bit off or, whatever. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. Hope you really like the video. If you're new to the channel, then please think about subscribing, all right? And give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. I'm going to do some more of these over the next few months. And if you're new to the channel, there's tons of stuff on there. There's hundreds of videos from off Teller, off Eric, troop videos, squadron videos, company videos, company section level videos, everything's on there. So get it in, get yourself into the channel and check out the channel and the videos and whatnot. Anyway, I'm Steve. Thanks very much for watching. I'll speak to you guys soon. Take it easy wherever you are around the world. Stay safe, and thanks very much for watching. Take it easy.